Okay.
Hi, I'm Michael from the League Brewery. We're a small nano brewery in the back of the League of Brewers homebrew shop in Nelson, New Zealand. And today we're doing our first brew with the new Grainfather G70. This was loaned to us by Bebby. I think it's the only one in the country, or the first one anyway. And we're replacing our second Braumeister, our older Braumeister. And we actually had our eye on this, knowing what the specs were going to be like, because one of the limitations of the Braumeister is the ability to brew above 60 liters at above about 5.5%. Our fermenters are all 120 and 60 liter fermenters, so we either have to brew less volume when we use a Braumeister if we're going to brew something like 6.5% beer, or we have to add something like dextrose, or do a double mash, which we've also done. With the new Grainfather, you can add considerably more grain. The maximum amount of grain you can do in a Braumeister realistically is about 13 kg. And with the G70 you can go up considerably more than that. I think it's on the order of up to 19 kg, but I need to confirm that. So today we're filling two 60-liter fermenters, so we're doing two different brews. We're brewing a New England style IPA with the new Sabro hops, and we want to target about 6.5%, between 6 and 6.5% ABV. So I'm putting 15 kg of grain in this, and then we're doing just a APA in this one with 13 kg of grain, shooting about 5.4%. So some of the things, this series of videos is not going to be how to brew with this. We're just going to point out a few differences with using, for those of you familiar with the regular Grainfather, because it's very similar in many respects, and how it varies a bit from the Braumeister. The new Grainfather has a much larger pump in the bottom, and so through the, which we'll show you later, through the wort chiller, we'll be pumping directly using this pump into a fermenter, where with the Braumeister we have a small pump that we use to pump through the wort chiller and then into the fermenter. Also, because this holds a lot more grain, instead of lifting, there's a lot of cautions in the manual regarding two people have to lift carefully. We use a pulley system because I'm often doing it by myself, and so we've had to modify it slightly from what we had with the Braumeister, because the G70 is a bit taller, and so we have more distance to clear, but we managed to, with our existing setup, be able to work here. So we'll see how it goes today with a full amount of grain in it. The other thing about the Grainfather series is the calculation of your mash waters, typically with a mash thickness of 2.7 liters per kg, and then whatever the volume underneath the bottom screen is. With the Grainfather, it's 3.5 liters. I measured this yesterday to be 6.5. It's not in their manual, but I programmed the Grainfather connection app to see what it was going to say, and it adds 6.8 liters. So it's 2.7 times the grain weight plus 6.8. And that's to account for a little bit between the malt pipe and the outside. There's a small amount of volume that is outside of the malt pipe, where with the Braumeister there's a large amount of volume that's outside the malt pipe. So for a 13 kg grain bill, you would typically have about 45 liters in this. This is 55 liters. So, and the mash thickness is probably thicker in the Braumeister than it is in the Grainfather. I'm expecting to get similar mash efficiencies with the G70 that we get with the G30, which is about 80 to 85%. We only get about between 70 and 75% with the Braumeister, unless we do an overnight mash, which pushes it up closer to 80. But I've never hit 80 with this. The mash thickness, I think, is just too high. And the approach is different between the two systems. This pushes the water up through the center and overflows, and this uses the typical Grainfather approach of pumping up through and then onto the top of the grain bed and let it filtering down. And then just one other difference, with the Grainfather you have an arm that comes up and over. This has a push-in hose, so this is the recirc hose which will go on top of the top screen once we've mashed in, and you configure it so there's a bit of a whirlpool. So this approach is a bit different than what you're used to with the Grainfather. We've been heating and circulating because I've added my minerals adjustments, and I wanted it thoroughly mixed. With the Grainfather, that's not much of a problem, but with the Braumeister, because of the way the water stays mostly in the malt pipe, I add the minerals before I add the malt pipe and make sure it's thoroughly mixed. Okay, so we're going to mash in, and as we come to points that I think are interesting for those of you who want to see what the new G70 is like, we'll add some more video. Thanks.